For those of you that are here for the first few times, and for those of you that just need a reminder, we are not so much a set of rules and creeds to adhere to as suggestions for living. The Science of Mind is about suggestions for living. Try it out, see if it works. I belong to two religions that really had rules. Like, I knew when I was in the lane. I knew where the boundary was, and I knew I wasn't supposed to get outside the lane. Now, I'm not told to not get outside the lane. I'm just told, you'll feel better if you're here, and you'll do better if you're here, and you'll have more experience of harmony and satisfaction and fulfillment if you're here, but try it out. There's no hell except in your own head. Ooh. So I will say that last week I was upset, and I noticed that my upsetness actually upset my body. I was not at ease, and I was diseased. I wasn't diseased like you could take a pill for it. There was no Excedrin, cold pill, or Pepto-Bismol that was going to help. I just felt a malaise, don't want to moveness. And I practiced what I'm going to preach. And I noticed that I was back on the lane, back in the place of feeling more confident, more optimistic, seeing more possibilities, whereas before I hadn't. So we teach a way, like all I can do is teach my way. I have to see how others lived, try it out myself. If it works, I'll talk about it. And then I encourage you to listen to myself or others, read books, try it out. If it makes you feel more alive, do it. The quote that I used last week, and I forgot who was here and remembers who the quote was by. The quote was, what I want most in the world is for people to come alive. Most people are just existing. To come alive, to be alive. And Howard Thurman, who was one of the first, in fact, I think the first African-American minister to have a interracial church. Because for a while it was illegal. But he had it. He was an influence for Martin Luther King and others. But what he said is, don't ask God what the world needs. What the world needs is for people who have come alive. So we're here, maybe, to use another person's good wisdom. His name was Joshua ben Joseph, but they call him Jesus. He said, I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. So maybe we're all here to remember we can have life and to have it more abundantly. To feel alive, to feel like we can flourish and we can thrive, because that's what life does. That's what life does. So that's why I am here. And I don't think I'm here to tell you anything that you need to know. I think we're all just here to remember together. And take a deep breath, and if it helps us feel freer, then maybe we're on the right track. The way. Actually, the followers of Jesus were called for many years, for many centuries, just followers of the way. And I want to share this with you. This is from Rabbi Rami Shapiro. He said, we need a world wisdom Bible. Stop just quoting one religion and then quote another religion. They should all be kind of together. So he talks about the way. The way is how the wise become wise. The way is not a fixed set of disciplines, prescriptions, commandments, or laws. The way is more strategic than tactical. And because it's more difficult to master. Because when I was in those other religions, I knew when I wasn't thinking right, when I wasn't doing right and when I wasn't behaving right. Now it's just like, okay, is this really good for me? Is this good for the planet? Is this, it's always a questioning. But I think it's a more fulfilling way of doing things. So I have started a series, and the series is moving on up to a greater sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Who would like to do so? Great, thank you. Whew. So I need to catch you up because some of you were not here last week, and actually these are things that build on each other. So the third step doesn't work unless you're doing the first step. And this step that I'm going to talk about today is actually a product of the first step. So let's just go back to the first step. The first step is that you look up. Metaphorically and literally look up. It's about turning our attention from the things and the issues that bother us, the problems to be solved, the outcome you want to create, and allowing yourself to entertain, I'm going to call them God thoughts. I call them downloads. To entertain a consciousness greater than yourself. To be open to that. And one of the ways to do that is metaphorically turn our attention to God. We can do that through chanting, dancing, good music. There's ways you can just, I read things and I will turn my attention to God. And the quickest way, the easiest way, except when you're driving or walking, don't do it when you're driving, is to just look up. Just look up. How many of you were here last week? How many of you noticed that when you looked up, your breathing changed, your body changed, your thoughts kind of almost dissolved? Anybody notice that when they were doing that? It really does work. But it won't work, you don't know until you try it. It just, wow. I've taught this to students at Bastyr. I've taught this to people that were in transitional housing. And they have issues, and then okay, maybe not. It's like, it's like Valium. I've never taken Valium, but I watched it on a movie last night, so I was like, I guess it makes you feel better. I don't know. But anyway, I always feel good. I don't need to. I just look up. If I remember to do so, therein lies the issue. Therein lies the issue. Because sometimes the ego would just like to have its moment, its opinion. See, we were created, I believe, we were created to be happy. We were created to thrive. In old terminology, I said this last week, but I want to just reinforce it. In old terminology, that's God's will for us. God's will for us is good. Some people don't like the term God's will, will for you to have something that you don't want. Oh yeah, if you have to suffer and you think it's God's will, then you don't know God. We need a bigger God, something that does not require its creation to suffer. In new terminology, life's impulse is to thrive. And life finds an avenue of expression through you and through me and through all creation and through all people. So life's impulse is for us to find a way, to find that middle way in which we thrive, in which we it's not like we don't have obstacles. It's not like we don't have challenges, but we just find ourselves bigger than those. Actually, it was Carl Jung who said, the best way to get rid of a problem is to rise above it. And so he would help people see a bigger experience of themselves, and then the problems seemed to dissolve. Maybe Carl Jung had, maybe the patient was talking here and Carl Jung was looking up. Who knows? Getting all sorts of wonderful downloads. So, today, we're going to talk about the next step, which if you look up, you will rise up. If you look up, you will rise up. But it's not a process. There are ways to talk yourself out of things. I mean, I've talked myself out of things. I'm talking about the time when I don't want to talk myself out of things. I'm unwilling to talk myself out of things, and I can't talk myself out of things. How many of you have ever been there? Like sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. So sometimes you can talk yourself out of a bad mood. How many of you have talked yourself out of a bad mood? And how many of you found at times you just can't talk yourself out of that bad mood? In fact, you don't even want to. You don't even want to. The ego has got the reins, and it is saying, no, I've been good. About 6 months, I've been Miss Nice Woman, and I have raised above all of that chatter. I have not been influenced by the world in any way. I have not touched the earth. I have been so good. I have been holy. People have said things. I have not responded. The news has gone on, and I have been above it all, but not today. I mean, how many of you have been there? Like, well, that happened to me last week, and I got in a twit, and that twit made me sick. Literally, I could barely get out of bed. And there was a part of me that said, you know what to do. I don't want to do it. You know what to do. I don't want to do it. And I'm saying this to you because I was actually in class last Monday, and I was talking about some things I struggle with, and one of my students said, you struggle? I'm like, what? Have you heard me? Oh, to the hey, yes. Of course I struggle. What I will say, though, is my struggle is less and less and less than it was before. And I get off my pity party sooner than I have before. But it doesn't mean that I don't have a pity party. It doesn't mean that I don't get depressed. It doesn't mean that I don't struggle knowing what I should do and not wanting to do it. Doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen. But I know the tools to rise above it. Actually, to be lifted above it. When we look up, we're lifted. I'm in good company. And for those of you that do this also, you are in good company. I'm going to share with you, someone asked on Facebook Live what book I was quoting from. It's Stephen Mitchell, A Book of Psalms. This was adapted from the Hebrew, so it won't sound like your Psalms. It wasn't translated into Greek, then Latin, then I think 5 or 6 iterations of English. This is directly from the Hebrew. So let's try, I love this, Psalm 30. Thank you and praise you, Lord, for you saved me from disaster. And that has happened so many times. I'm here to confess. Yes, and testify to a confession. I'm going to confess my sin, that there have been times I've been going down a road that would have led to disaster. How many of you have done that? Yeah, and it's your own thinking that's taken you there. Like, how many of you were just this close to saying something that you would regret for a very long time? And then something like, I think this is David. Thank you and praise you, Lord, for saving me from disaster. I cried out, help me, dear God, I'm frightened and have lost my way. And you came to me in the darkness and you breathed life into my bones and you plucked me from the abyss and healed me and made me whole. I love it. Plucked me from the abyss. In another psalm, Psalm 40 says, I trusted you, Lord, and waited, and you came and answered my plea, and you lifted me from the pit, and you pulled me out of the mire, and you set my feet on firm ground, and you made my steps unshakable. That's what happens when we turn to God and we just say, we're just saying, you know what? The way I'm thinking, the way I'm feeling is not doing anybody any good, especially me. Help. And when we look up, Just look up. 45 degrees. You know, there's some mystery and mystical schools that say that God is always at a 45-degree angle because it's always rising in our consciousness. And it should be rising in our consciousness. Never will it set. Because as soon as you think you know a little bit of God, more will rise up. And you'll know more God and more God and more God. So we lift our eyes 45 degrees, and then we start feeling ourselves being lifted out of the thing that's been miring us. This is true on so many levels, but I want to get to this thing about vibration. See, we vibrate at, well, everything's vibrating, by the way. Everything, all atoms, everything are vibrating. And it's been said that by a lot of people, both mystics and also quantum physicists, that the invisible becomes visible by slowing down the vibration so it can be perceived. So spirit becomes matter by just slowing down. And yet we're always vibrating. And the vibration comes across as something that we're transmitting. So there's people that vibrate at the level of joy and they transmit joy. There's people that vibrate at the level of love and they transmit love. There's people that vibrate at the level of courage and confidence, and around them you feel more courage and more confidence. And there's people that vibrate at the level of disagreement and hate and prejudice, and they send that out into the world. And vibration is an attractor. So we attract what we're vibrating at. It's another way of saying the law of attention, or describing the law of attention, because the law of attention says what you give your attention to will increase. And that's because your attention will always affect your vibration. So when I look up, I'm actually allowing a higher vibration than this personality can come up with. This personality can be discouraged, but there's something that doesn't even know discouragement. And so it lifts, it's a lifting thing. And we rise up. We rise up. I want to tell you the benefits of rising up so that you might look up more often. Actually, the whole thing is not, it's not so much about just for us, but we have to rise up if we're going to lift up. If we're going to be a force for good in the world, we can't be a force for good in the world at the level of pessimism. We have to be at the level of optimism. We have to be able to be inspired by possibility. So when we allow ourselves to be raised up in thought and feeling and attraction, it will ultimately show up in our life experiences as one. The issue might totally become a non-issue. I mean, I've watched that happen before in people. They it's maybe not such a big deal. You won't know that unless you try that. I talked about my experience with that in our church last week. I'm not going to tell the story again, but it can become just a thing. Do you see, if it's not a thing, there's an opportunity for a miracle to happen? I hear of so many miracles. So many miracles. I mean, like weird, wonderful miracles happen in our community. I want that to be normal. Like awesome normalities are normal. And one of the ways, the simplest way, is for a community of people to even 5 or 10 minutes a day, just look up. When they're about to go into a meeting that they feel a little trepidation about, to simply look up. Before they have a hard conversation, to simply look up. Before they try to make a decision that could make a big difference to themselves and their family and their world, to simply look up. Something would happen. I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but I would love it if we could have like a miracle bulletin board. There are people that I know that we share Miracle Mondays, and we talk about the fabulous, wild things that happen during the week, because we want something like, whoa, what? Like that sunrise, what? At least once a week. Not like, 5 years ago I had this really wonderful thing happen to me. No, our God is a living God. Life wants to live through you in greater ways than human comprehension. And when it does, stuff will happen that's awesomely, outrageously, powerfully normal. Woo! I was talking to someone just yesterday who had a stroke. And the brain can readjust and move, other cells can kind of take over those cells that have been destroyed. And the recovery was pretty good. I mean, really pretty good. Lots of prayer, lots of recovery. But he went to a neurologist last week, and the neurologist said, I see on your chart here that you had a stroke, but your MRI, and I know these things, your MRI said, you never had a stroke. You're not only healed of your symptoms, like your brain went back to normal. He said, I don't see that very often. And I said, he needs to know more people with a practitioner, doesn't he? Two, when you look up and you're lifted up, the solution may pop into your mind. I call them downloads. How many of you right now have something that is bugging you that you have no answer for? Great. Don't look at me. Look right up there. Just keep looking up there. And the blue sky. Just be open. Now, it might come through in this moment. It might come through later. Mine usually shows up when I'm driving the car. I don't know why, but it's a very holy place according to God. No burning bush. It's a hybrid engine that just does it for it. 3, love and forgiveness will crowd out thoughts of judgment and resentment. Because the nature of God is love. It's the highest name for God. And even though you're not calling on love, if you continue to look up, your vibration will raise to the place of love, and love just doesn't pay attention. It just doesn't pay attention to the faults of others or yourself. Resentments just sort of dissolve. I mean, literally just sort of dissolve. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't notice what happened. I mean, if you've been, like there are people in our community, because I live in the boonies, and some of them are getting robbed, because there's long driveways and nobody can see, and it may happen to us. But I know that instead of harping on it, I would probably just get a better, even more elaborate security system. But I don't think I would be like, ooh, they did this. Does that make sense? Because love just doesn't go there. It's like, it's damaging to your body. you will find yourself more confident and grace-filled, because there's just something that it's inevitable. I love that word. That word, it's my new favorite word, the inevitable. It's inevitable, which means I had to look it up. It just sounded hard to pronounce for a while. But I looked it up because Rabbi Shapiro kept using it. Oh, inevitable. It's like, it sounds like, oh, effable. And I just didn't, tell me more. No. So I had to look it up. Inevitable means beyond description. No words can describe it. But something fills you up and you're not mired. I love the words of David. You're just not mired in the stuff of life. It's like, I'm bigger than this. Whew. I want our country to be bigger than some of the stuff we're mired in right now. I would love solutions to show up for our planet right now. I think it's the people who are willing to listen that are getting those solutions and those opportunities and those ideas, and they're confidently moving forward. For instance, how many of you saw the story about a man who decided that we were wasting too much hotel soap? Anybody read it? Yeah, one person. He said, he's in a kind of a math geek, and he had traveled a lot, and he said he spent 150 days a year in a hotel. And one day it just occurs to him that what happens with all that half-used soap that they give you? And he found out it goes into landfills. And then he did the math about how many people in hotels, how many days, how much room that would take. And he said, that's a waste. Plus, a lot of children die because they don't have good enough hygiene in other countries. So he came up with a plan, and he did this in his garage for years. He and his friends would take soap from the hotels, scrape off the sides so there wasn't somebody else's germs on it, scrape off the sides, grind it, melt it down, make bars, and send it off to other countries. That was getting to be a job in and of itself. And with courage, he asked for a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it only took them 8 hours to refuse it. But he was so filled with confidence, he knew there were other ways, so he came up with this other plan. How many of you, when turned down, go, I guess it's No, Spirit will fill you with confidence. That door closed, let's take another door, and he did. And he got all these hotels to sign up, and they paid him to take the soap away, which created the money to create the processing so that they could do so much more than his garage operation. See, there's so much that's possible when we're looking up for ourselves and for others, for the world. And you'll be confident. You'll get the solution, they'll be confident, like, well, that's not, I'm supposed to do this, and they don't want to help. I'll find another way. The other one is, old habits and beliefs, especially about yourself, will dissolve. There's something that I love. I love this term, dissolving grace. Grace is the free givingness of the universe to its creation, and you don't have to earn it. Which starts to dissolve the idea that I'm not good enough, I'm not ready. Who am I? I don't deserve this. Thoughts that may have run around in your head once or twice. The more you look up, the more they disappear. Because you'll start to understand what we sing a lot that we sang today. I am as God created me. in the light, in the love, in the glory. I am as God created me, in the light, in the love, in the glory. I usually sing it now really soft, but we don't need soft, because frankly, those thoughts are still in here, and let's just look up and sing. See the glory of that? See the glory of that sunshine? See the glory of that beautiful picture behind me? Anyway, let's sing it. I am as God created me, in the light, in the love, in the glory. I am as God created me, in the light, in the love, in the glory. In the light, in the love, and the glory. In the light, and the love, and the glory. In the light, and the love, and the glory, I am. In the light, and the love, and the glory. In the light, and the love, and the glory. In the light, and the love, and the glory, I am. And so I do give thanks that as we look up, all that is true of us is made real in us. Real in us. That's to realize God. Not to talk about God, not to think about God, but to realize God will make a difference. Because God realized must produce miracles. 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 And I will accept nothing less for my life. That's my way. I am not going to succumb to the issues of the world. I will not succumb to aging. I will not succumb to the stuff that will mire me down if I think about it. No. I am here for the glory of God, and I know that is true for you as well, but you've got to accept it. And when you do, you will be raised up. Raised up. You're not going to hike the hill. I'm not hiking no hill. I want to be lifted up and put there. And that's what God will do. And here's a song that'll celebrate that. Thank you, Rafe.
Raise, 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 raise me up. There's nowhere left to fall. Oh, no. Raise, raise me up. Holy, holy, holy Mother of all. Holy rays shine upon me. Holy rays light our way. Holy rays shine upon me. Holy rays light our way. Holy rays come rain. Yeah, why not rise up as you're able? All together now, raise me up. Raise me up, yeah. Raise me up, yeah. 'Cause we're all together now. Raise me up, oh. Raise me up, yeah. You raise me up, yeah. We're all together now, all together. Raise me up. Raise me up. Raise me up, yeah. We're all together now. Raise me up. Raise me up. Raise me up. For we're all together now. with the wisdom of ages. Where we stand, this is holy ground. Now raise me up, yeah. Raise me up. Raise me up, yeah. 'Cause we're all together now. Raise me up. Raise me up. Raise me up. 'Cause we're all together now, all together. Raise me up. Raise me up. Raise me up. 'Cause we're all together now, all together. Raise me up. Raise me up. Raise me up. 'Cause we're all together now, yeah, 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 right here, right now, yeah.